This is the Tea with NSP podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the 5th episode of the Tea with NSP. Opportunity and inclusivity is at the heart of National Student Pride. We are so thrilled by the support we've been shown by our 2021 sponsors, who ensure that our amazing digital festival in April and this podcast can happen. Enterprise Rent-A-Car are long-standing friends and supporters of NSP, a glorious 8 years and counting. Their commitment to diversity and inclusion across the board never wavers. In fact, next Monday, the 8th of March, they are hosting an amazing event about breaking barriers as a part of International Women's Day. Check out at ERAC_jobs on Twitter to see the pinned tweet for further details. This week, David and I sit down to talk to the beautiful activist Charlie Craggs, here to talk about transphobia within society, her experience growing up at fashion college, and body image. Stick around to the end to find out which queer icons are with us next week. Now, let's get into the good bit, shall we?
Hi guys, and welcome to the Tea with NSP. With me, David, who works on a social media team, and
Morgan, I'm co-chair, third year at King's.
And this week we have the amazing, wonderful activist, writer, how many other things going to have on your CV? Charlie Craggs.
Hey!
So, I guess the first question is always a really terrible question, but like, how's the last 12 months been? I just like to check in on people, make sure they're all right after the last 12 months.
I'm probably the most all right person you've met, to be honest. I am such a loser. Like, honestly, my life has hardly changed. And that sounds, and I've kind of realised how bad that is. Like, I was in counselling, I had my little counselling phone call the other day, and I kind of said to them, I was like, do you know what? I realised, like, I've got a problem because I'm coping with this way too well. Like, I could literally do another year of this easy peasy and not feel like I need to. I don't even go for like a daily walk. I'm good. Like, I can stay in my house. Like, honestly, like, I'm so pissed that Big Brother's not a thing anymore because I'd be so good at it. Like, they go a bit crazy after like 2-3 weeks. I'm like, I could stay in a house for like 2 years and I'd be fine.
See, I was fine the first time. This time I find it harder. Like, I'm very close to Vanessa Feltz writing Desperation on the wall.
You remember? Yeah, when she like wrote on the chalk thing or something.
Yeah. That's me right now. I'm just like, I've had enough of staying in, because I've been working from home for like 12 months now, and it's usually I need to like vibe off somebody and chat to somebody, hence why I'm doing podcasts.
I was working from home before anyway, so I think that's probably why I'm like a homebody. And even if I wasn't working from home, I think it's kind of to do with trauma, but I'm just like someone who's like likes to be like safe and indoors, and like, I don't know, I'm just a bit of a recluse, to be honest.
Even at uni, I think the only time I ever went out was like to go to a bar in the evening, maybe once a month, and then the rest of the time I'd go to uni, come home, and stay in my room. So
that's once a month more than me, babe.
Oh, so the whole point of the podcast, that Morgan will eloquently introduce before all this, so it'll be nice, is to talk about you growing up, what it was like. So, 16 years old, Charlie.
Yeah.
What were you like? What kind of kid were you? What was school like?
It's weird. I was going to say I was exactly the same, but really I wasn't even close to exactly the same. Like, there's parts of me that were the same, but parts of me that were so different. And obviously this isn't just about like trans stuff, but I just mean, because the person, I think what people need to understand first of all is that the person underneath the transition is the exact same person. It's your soul doesn't transition, or your like personality doesn't transition. But having said that, it kind of did, in the sense that at 16 I was in school. I was in an all boys school. I grew up in London. I'm from Ladbroke Grove, and I was in school, and it was a bit of a, it wasn't like a bad school, but it was like a tough school. Like, it was a rough, tough school. And I was like bullied really, really badly, and I was a victim. Like, I didn't argue back, like I didn't stand up for myself. And like, having said that, while personality doesn't change when we transition, mine kind of did, in the sense that like I just refused to be a victim anymore once I transitioned, because I was made to be much more of a victim once I transitioned. Like, the first few years of transition were really hard, and I just was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I always without fail stand up for myself if someone does me wrong or says something wrong. Even if someone looks at me the wrong way, I'm going to say something. I refuse to be that 16-year-old again. So yeah, I guess I was going to say I haven't changed at all, but really I've probably changed a lot.
What was it like being in an all-boys school? Because I think I've dreamt to that as a 16-year-old, probably have been in an all-boys school, but I imagine it was quite different.
Was you not in an all-boys school?
No. I was in a Catholic school.
I was in a Catholic school, a Catholic all-boys school. Imagine how hard that was, being a trans girl in a Catholic school, first of all, but also an all-boys Catholic school. Where I was literally like, and I was like the only out person pretty much. I don't think, like, there was people who were kind of like, quite like people had like, you know, they get called like names as well, but they weren't out, so it was less harsh on them. Whereas I was like the only one that people could like, and it's not even like I was. It was literally, when I tell you, it's not even an exaggeration, like the whole school hated me and was allowed to hate me, and they got away with it because it was a Catholic school. A lot of the teachers were homophobic and transphobic, so like there wasn't like any like policing of it. So like literally I remember being in like sixth form, like I was at 18, or how old are you? Yeah, I would have been leaving at 18. So I was 18 and I remember like little 11-year-old year sevens whose like backpacks are like bigger than their body, you know, like they're little like turtles.
Yeah.
They were like, batty boy, like shouting at me. And I'm like, because everyone else got away with it, they were getting like, so the whole school, like, because I was the only one pretty much out, like I was just the one they all beat. And like, I was going to say horrible, but that doesn't even do it justice. There's not a word that can do justice to what but most LGBT people go through at school. It's disgraceful. And it's like, you just think as well, like, I just don't understand how it's allowed, because it is a hate crime. And it's like, and even like people will be like, well, they're just kids and stuff. Well, babe, I was 18. Like, you wouldn't call an 18-year-old a child. Like 18-year-olds who are like bullying people to within an inch of their life, or even aside from, take the word bullying out, because that again kind of has connotations of like childishness. It's much more than just like a bully, like like gay. It was like people literally like coming in my face every day, like looking for fights and stuff because I was LGBT. It's like, how is this allowed? Like, and it's like, I didn't go to school even that long ago. That was like less than 10 years ago. So like, and it's in London as well. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think London's such a progressive place, and people think that this next generation are, you know, like middle-aged people are like, they're just, you know, they just don't care about sexuality and gender. They fucking do. Like, even now, like 10 years on from that, the abuse I get in the street mostly is from boys of that age still. Like, so like people who are like in that kind of college or like school age, like 15, 14, 16, 17, like shouting at me in the street or like whatever. That's the demographic I get most abuse from. So it really pisses me off, this kind of narrative that like school age people like 16 around that age are like so progressive, and they're really not.
I mean, I've always seen London as such a progressive place, but at the same time, I think it is very specific areas of London. I think there's like little pockets of London that, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. But the rest of it, I still think is blank slate, like absolutely not. Most of it, yeah, okay. I think it's the more central you get, the safer it gets, kind of thing.
Yeah, but you even still hear of like loads of attacks happening. A lot of like the most prolific LGBT attacks have happened in central London around like Soho, where like people know that LGBT people are there, and like people who are LGBT feel more comfortable there, so like they're more of a target because they're more visible, like holding hands or whatever. You hear of like that man who was like killed in Trafalgar Square, like the gay guy, like things like that. Like, you just, it's, I don't know, I think as someone who grew up in London, I'm just very like, I don't see the same charm in London as I think a lot of people who move here from places where it's not as LGBT friendly. Like, I kind of see it in a very different way, because I'm like, well, I grew up here my whole life and I've always been treated like shit. So like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know.
Sort of had the opposite thing of when I moved to, I'm from Glasgow originally. And it's a weird thing because like no one really kind of gave a shit that you were gay, but they more gave a shit if you supported Celtic or Rangers. And that was... but honestly, like, it was sort of there, but no one really cared about it. I remember people used to call me a poof. That's me showing my age, because that was the go-to. And so people call me a poof. And then I came out when I was 14, and a guy, you know, usual straight guy, you know, kind of bully type, came over and was like, "I'm really sorry. Like, I didn't mean to call you a poof. I thought you weren't one, but now you are. I do apologise for calling you."
Wow, fucking hell!
And I was
like, wish I grew up in Glasgow.
But it wasn't easy, like, because I was a fat and gay kid, so I got both. But like moving down here, I remember someone saying to me, I used to work in Marks and Spencer's in Clapham Junction, and a guy said to me, he's like, "You're a nice enough guy that I would walk by you in the street because I know you're gay." And I was like, "What, like now?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, if I see you outside, like, do not ever talk to me." He's like, "I don't agree with that lifestyle. Don't get involved in it." And I was like, "Oh,
The audacity of this man.
Yeah. Like, who did he think he was? Like Beyonce, like that? You're gonna want to fucking talk to him
Don't
and
talk to me.
Fuck off, mate. Fuck all the way off. Who do you think you are? You're like, oh, I don't agree with your lifestyle. You're not God. No one asked you if you agree, sweetheart. I don't agree with your lifestyle. I don't agree with your haircut. Fuck off.
I didn't as well. It was
It just shocks me. Oh my God.
It was so weird because I've never had genuine like homophobia. The first time I was like, oh wow, okay. I was quite shocked that I had to stop. So like I think when we have like these traumatic things happen to us, we always have like an outlet. So like, what was your outlet during like your school years?
I didn't have one, to be honest, and that's probably why I'm still affected today. Like, let's be honest, I could just lie and be like, oh, I liked art, and I did like art and stuff, and I do like art today, but like I didn't have enough of an outlet, and I really am still affected today. Like even on a much smaller scale, like on my stories last night, I talked about, because I was doing it's HIV testing week, and I did the finger prick test, and I was like burping while I was doing it, and then after I explained like when I'm stressed I burp, like almost literally the second I have a stressful thought I burp, and I traced it back and I was like, it's ever since school. Like for some reason in school I was about 16 and all of a sudden I would just burp all the time and I felt disgusting. I was like, I especially as a feminine person, I was pre-transition, but I don't want to burp, like, and I had loads of people say, I do this as well, I do this, and then someone messaged me, there's a name for it, it's like aphagy, I don't know, it begins with an A, and it's to do with like when you're stressed you swallow more air, like you have shallow breath. So my point is that I'm still so affected, even physically, having kind of side effects of what I went through in school, like because it started in school, and like I think if I had more of a outlet for the bullying and the abuse, I'd be a bit better today. But like I don't know, it wasn't talked about as much. I mean, like I feel like now, like it's amazing that there are podcasts like this for people who might be going through that right now, so that they can find an outlet, or they can go get some help, or they can just see that it's not right and that they're normal, or that whatever. Like, but for people who were in school like 10 years ago or whatever, or before that, it just wasn't normal. Like now I feel like people understand it's normal to be gay, it's normal to be trans, whatever, like, but back then it just wasn't normal. And so like it just wasn't talked about. And like I said, even like with the teachers, it's not even that they were like neutral, they were like, a lot of them were like anti-LGBT as well. So like it just, there wasn't help, and there wasn't outlets, and there wasn't anything for me. So yeah, to be honest, like I would like to give like a nice answer to that question, but I'd rather be honest, because I think that's how we can fix the problem, is if we're just honest about the problems.
100%.
Yeah.
I was an only child, so I basically just either had to do it myself. Do you know what I mean? Like I read a lot and was on MSN a lot. Again, showing my age.
Oh my God, MSN.
Yeah. So, right, forgive me if I get this wrong, but I'm just going from your book when reading it, and a lot of the women in that talk about the kind of process of finding out that you're trans, and I understand that. Well, am I a gay man, or am I a woman that's gay? Like, what is that kind of process? What was your process, Charlie? Like, did you identify as a gay man for a while, or did you know you were trans, from a young age?
I did. So it's really weird with me, and it's because there was a lack of conversation. But like, so I did know from a young age, but I didn't know, if that makes sense. Like, I was clearly so textbook trans. Like, if I'd grown up now, if I'd grown up even 5 years ago, like my mum wouldn't, there would be language for it. But like, so I was 4 when I was like, oh, I wish I was a girl. I'd go to bed and pray I was a girl. Oh, mum, I wish I was a girl. I was saying I was trans, like saying but like back then it was assumed that if you're saying you're a girl, you're gay. And my mum was fine with that. My mum's an amazing, super accepting person. And like, so she just was fine with the thought of having a gay child. But telling your mum you're a girl doesn't mean you're gay. And that's no shade on my mum at all. But like, it's just that there wasn't this cultural conversation. There wasn't language around it. Like, I'm from a council estate in Ladbroke Grove. There definitely wasn't that cultural conversation happening there. So like, when boys expressed femininity, it was assumed that they were gay, and I was told I was gay. Like, so because you asked if I identified as gay, I never identified as gay. I was told I was gay. I was told at about 7 years old, you're gay, you're a puff, you're a batty boy, whatever. I never called myself gay. I was told I was gay. And like, first of all, to have a sexuality, you have to be sexual. You like, it kind of comes hand in hand. And I'm like, I'm a 7-year-old. The last thing I'm thinking about is like doing anything sexual. So like, I didn't know if I was, but I was told from so young that I was that I just never even questioned it. And so like, I think as well, that kind of stunted my transition, because had I not have been told what I was, maybe I would have explored earlier, but I just always assumed I was gay. So like I didn't actually come out as gay. I like was just like known as gay. Like it was just so obvious that I wasn't a straight or cis het person. So like I never came out as gay, but like it was just assumed I wasn't told I was. And then so like it wasn't until I saw a trans person that I knew I could be trans, because you just didn't see like we didn't have, like, even now, like you can like name on like maybe like two hands or like the trans representation in like mainstream media you can think of, like, and that's in like 2021. Like in like 2010 and prior to that, even 2005, even like when I was like coming into secondary school, there was like Nadia on Big Brother in 2005-6. Before that there was no one for like 20 years, and after that there was no one for about 10 years. So like there was until I saw her, and I was just like that, I finally had a word for like what trans was, and I was like, oh, I think that's what I am, and like straight away resonated with it. And yeah, I think like having the word gay like put on me, and just assuming I was gay because I was told I was gay, it meant that like I just assumed I was because I was told I was, so I didn't explore it. But like when I started exploring it, so once I left my all-boys school where I was like really persecuted for being LGBT, I went to St. Martin's, which is like a really flamboyant, like crazy art school where everyone is gay. Like there's no straight, well, there are some straight boys, but it's mostly gay boys and girls. And like, so when I was around so many gay people, I realized, oh my God, I'm not like you at all. Like I'm not gay. Like obviously I was like them, like I liked all the same things as them. I like had the same kind of cultural references, but I was like deep down, like inside, we are not the same. Like I am clearly not like, I'm just not the same. And like even to do with like dating, like I just never, like I like had a boyfriend and like I just was like, this doesn't feel right. Like I don't feel like a man with a man. I feel like a girl. Like just the more like I was around it and then started questioning it, I was like, no, do you know what? This isn't me. And then I explored drag, and then I kind of realized that drag wasn't even enough for me. And then I just obviously came to the conclusion I was trans. And it was like a very like, it was an evolution. It wasn't like an overnight bang. It was like I started presenting more androgynously, and it just felt, I felt the most comfortable I'd ever felt in my life. So I just kind of, it was kind of just like a self exploration thing, I guess.
I think there's honestly like, I'm not just to kiss your ass a wee bit, but like I honestly think it's amazing. Like talking about that is. Like, cause I exactly like yourself. The first person I ever seen that was trans was Nadia on Big Brother, and
yeah, I think everyone from our generation.
Yeah, you think that that's going to be like a big like milestone, but then fucking nothing for just like,
yeah, for like
10 years.
If she was on it in 2005, if you think about it, Laverne Cox was the first kind of new trans person we heard of after that wave. And that was like 2015 on Orange is the New Black. That's 10 years of what in between those 10, the only thing, do you know what the only thing in between those 10 years was? Is Jerry Springer, That's a Man segments. So even though I kind of had an inkling that I was trans at this point, and my friends can recall me, like one of my best friends is a lesbian, and she was like, I remember you telling me you were trans at 18. And I really don't remember that because I was in such a dark place. But it was that I knew I was trans, but I didn't want to be trans, because the only time I saw trans women on TV in that period was when they were literally being beaten up on Jerry Springer and the audience were clapping, because it was like That's the Man segments. Who wants to be trans if that's what your life is going to be? There was no like no positive representation of trans people in the media showing that you could be like successful or like beautiful or like clever or whatever, or like even most importantly happy. Like I was like, I'd rather be miserable as a gay man, or I wasn't even a man at that point as a boy, but like I'd rather be miserable and like in the wrong body than like in the right body, but like being laughed at and beaten up in the street, which was when I transitioned, which was my narrative. Like that just became my life all of a sudden. So like, but for a long time I was like, I'd much rather just be unhappy. But it just got to the point where I was like, I was so suicidal, and I was just like, do you know what, if I don't transition, I'm gonna die. Like I literally can't do this anymore. Like as much as you think it's the easier option, it's like it's so much harder on your mental health. Like it's really hard. It'd be like a gay person choosing the easier option of staying in the closet. It's like it's not a life. It's not a life worth living if you're lying and not being true to yourself, and you're not living. So even if you are alive, you're not living. So you really might as well be dead if you're not out as gay or as trans. It's pointless.
The reason why I'm involved in National Student Pride was partially my own hang-ups about being gay, but also I witnessed what was happening with trans people. And there was like a larger visibility, but then there was this backlash against it. And I was like, no, I'm not doing this again. Like, I'm not watching this. Like, because I feel it's almost similar narrative of what happened in the 80s.
So scarily similar.
And it's like, the ones that fuck me off the most is these LGB pricks, the aligned motherfuckers.
Yeah, like, they jumped on me recently.
I've got no time for them, because it's like, how short is your fucking memory? Like, you were the ones that were asking for the help then, and trans people were helping you then, but now that we've got to the time where we're actually talking about these things, that you're going to sit and not support that group? Like, fuck you. Like, fuck you.
The thing that really pisses me off about them lot is that they are so stupid to think that if the people who are taking our rights away because of their campaigning aren't going to turn around and take their rights away next. You are stupid. Like, because if you think about their massive thing at the moment, is like the toilet debate thing. That's just a new thing. Is just the government are doing this like investigation at the moment into whether about toilet spaces and stuff, and they are literally contemplating putting trans women who haven't had surgery, aka me, and a lot of trans women, into the men's bathroom. And they're saying to scrap gender. So it's not even like saying use gender neutral bathroom. They are saying use the men's bathroom, make women go into the men's bathroom. And the thing is, if you don't think like, because if you are, let's break this down. This is what I always say. The reason they're saying this is because we are like a threat. Trans women in the women's bathroom are, but they're trying to paint us as like a sexual threat to the women in there. Okay, so why are gay men allowed in men's bathrooms then? I'm not even into women. Like, why am I, like, if you are going to use a narrative, if these people are going to use a narrative that we are a sexual threat, if they win, and the LGBT Alliance help them win, these people take away our rights and chuck trans women like me in a men's bathroom, gay men will be next, lesbian women will be next. And already, if you think about it, lesbian women especially are being affected by that the trans kind of thing around the bathrooms already, because butch lesbian women are being like clocked as if they're trans in bathrooms. I've seen so many stories online of women being like, I was chucked out of bathroom, I'm not even trans, like I'm a fucking woman, and even women who aren't even lesbians, you know, you can be butch and be a straight woman. Like, it's good. It just is madness that these stupid LGBT Alliance are like, oh, and like I said, they dogpiled on me recently with my documentary, and I was just like, it just blows my mind that it's coming from within the community. And like you said, when it's a community that has been built on the backs of like a gay and our liberation in general as a community, but it was called the Gay Liberation Front, and just like gay rights, it's built on black trans women's backs. Like, it's like, why would you throw us under the bus? Like, madness. But thank you for saying that, babe. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you.
And it's
so much.
It's honestly the reason why I'm not saying that I'm doing anything great or anything like that, but just it got me into this group, because I was very not against the gay community, but I felt very excluded from it. So I grew up always an obese kid, and you know, you see the looks of what a gay man's supposed to look like, and gay men would be horrible to me, so I never felt really a part of it. And then I kind of, about 2-3 years ago, I was like, well, I can either sit here and hate on it and let shit happen to people that I care about, or I can make my voice heard enough so that it can hopefully change in a little bit, so it's more
proactive move.
Yeah. And so I got involved with Student Pride, and I'm always the one that's like, yeah, but what about trans people? And
thank you so much. And I pray, please, if you are listening to this, please do the same. Like, please, you don't have to do it on the same level of getting involved with like Student Pride, or like, but even if it's just a smaller thing of just like tweeting or posting on Instagram, or like calling people out about their tweets and posts, like, it is so important that you don't just let this happen, because I promise you, and don't even, I was going to say because I promise you you'll be next, but you shouldn't even be doing it because you might be next. You should be doing it because this is wrong, point blank, period, anyway. Like, even if it wasn't gonna affect you, like, you shouldn't have to only get involved with social causes that might affect you one day. No, get involved because it's the fucking right thing to do. Please, if you are listening to this, please consider lifting your voice up, or lifting the voices up of other people who are fighting for it's our community. We are a community, whether these people like it or not. We are.
You mentioned your documentary. I was going to leave it till later because I wanted to ask you about your university, but I think it's a good point. So do you want to explain what your documentary is? Because I know what it is, but I think it'd be good for someone like yourself to explain what it is.
So this is actually the first time I'm talking about it, which is really exciting. So like, it's basically, it's called DIY Trans Teens, and it's about how basically, so it's kind of, there's a lot of talk in the media right now about young trans people, like trans teenagers, and like basically trans people in general, not just trans teenagers, there's massive long waiting lists. So like I waited about 2.5 years for my first appointment to discuss transitioning. It's gone up to even like up to 5 years you can be waiting now. 3 to 5 years is the kind of average, which is disgraceful for a first appointment to discuss transitioning. And it's also disgraceful when you think about how the narrative in the media is the total opposite, and they paint a picture like when you come out to your GP as trans, they like get you in for surgery next week. It's literally you're waiting half a decade for a first appointment to discuss. No hormones, nothing, no surgery, just to discuss. So my documentary is basically breaking down those kind of that narrative, and just like meeting the trans teenagers who are having to resort to things like buying drugs online because they're not going to be helped for 5 years, and the effect, like how dangerous it is to be buying these drugs, like where are you buying them from. It's about it's just, I went around basically the country just meeting the trans people who are being affected by these things, and just like kind of hopefully just like it's a way of like the public kind of getting the truth on the art. And it's not even from a very biased trans perspective, because it's for BBC. Like there was a lot of with the commissioners being like, no, you need to be really like I was just the presenter, so I was just being told by my director like, we need to put these in, like we know we don't want to talk about like detransitioners, but we have to put it in. So it's very balanced as well. So it's not even like a propaganda piece. It's very much like this is the truth, and the truth actually is in our favor, because we're on the good side of history, but like it's not a biased piece. It's literally just like the truth. And so there are uncomfortable things, like I meet a detransitioner, but even having met the detransitioner, like it ended up being a really positive side of the film, because in the argument around trans teenagers, that the people against it, including the LGBT Alliance, will always be like, well, how do they know at such a young age? What if you change your mind, blah, blah, blah. And the detransitioner was basically saying like, because the whole thing around detransitioners, there was a big case in the High Court where it's like, oh, there's not enough like support for them or whatever. Like it was amazing, because we came to the same conclusion that it's what needs to happen is there just needs to be more support for trans teenagers who realize they are trans. And like literally 99% of people it's less than 1% of people detransition. So like support for the people, the 99% who are trans and who do need help, but also support, like if there was more support in place, so it wasn't just like 5 years for an appointment, it would help the people who aren't trans and who think they are trans and detransition. Like if there was just more support in general, it would be beneficial for all of us. And it's not a case of like, because these arguments in the media are like, well, let's just stop everything. And that's what has happened. Like the High Court just ruled that under 16s can't get any help anymore. So it's like, this is stupid, because they are going to go and seek help anyway. They're going to go and buy hormones off the internet and stuff. So like, yeah, it's just it's basically about just like showing the truth, and just hoping that the public see that like this is wrong. This is really, really, really wrong.
I assumed it was that, but the first article I saw was from some right-wing rag, was obviously the other side of you telling people like DIY ways of being trans. Obviously that's absolute bullshit, but like, how did that make you feel that you're opening a topic that is not being talked about enough, and very, very rightly so, but then this is the response from it? Like how did that?
I would actually disagree. I think it's being talked about enough. I think it's being talked about too much, if anything. If you think about it, trans people, not even just trans teenagers, trans people make up less than 1% of the population. Why are we being talked about so much? Why is there so much focus on 1% of the population? And when there's so much talk about detransitioners as well, detransitioners make up 1% of the 1%. Why is there so much focus on 1% of the 1% of the population? It makes absolutely no sense. Like if there was a statistic, and I wish I had it up now so I could say the actual numbers, but they did a tally of all the articles that just the Times, who are really bad with trans stuff, and they tallied up all the articles they've done about trans people in the last year, and not a single one was written by a trans person, but they were all anti-trans, and it was like 324 or something. It's literally almost one a day at this point. It is just ridiculous. It is ridiculous. So like when I saw the Daily Mail talking about it, I was like really angry, mostly because of the use of the word children. When I'm meeting I'm meeting teenagers, you have to be 18 to have hormones in the UK on the NHS. So to call 18-year-olds children, and this links really nicely to be like just LGBT stuff in general and national student pride, because it's something that's been used against gay people before. And like you drew the parallel earlier, where it's like it's so similar to the 80s. So calling 18-year-old trans people children, but then you can be 15 and join the army and potentially be killed for your country. You can be 16 and get married in this country. 16. You can have sex, you can have a baby, you can do the lottery, you can gamble, you can drink, you can smoke, you can get a tattoo on your face. But you know, like, oh, but they might change their mind. What if it's a phase about being trans at 18? They're not children. You're not calling people who join the army or get married or have sex children. That's what annoyed me most about that article, is just like the parallel between how gay people were being talked about in the 80s. We have to remember as well that trans people were essentially being talked about in that, because there wasn't like terminology for trans. Like they would have thought that like a woman, a man in their eyes who's dressed as a woman is just a gay man. Do you know what I'm saying? Like in the same way that like with the Stonewall riots and stuff, it was kind of like gay liberation. It's called it's gay liberation, but it was for trans women as well. But like, so I think it's important that we do understand that when we're talking about like Section 28 and stuff as well, though it's talked about as like talking about gay stuff, is trans stuff comes under gay stuff in those times anyway.
Yeah,
of language.
100%.
I would never thought about it like that, but yeah.
I
don't know why I would never, but
I only just thought about it recently like that. It just, I guess
it's as much as it's like it's an awful experience to go through. You being there and saying these things, like imagine us, 10 years old watching Nadia have a random fucking win on Big Brother that goes to nothing, but actually the opposite of now in 2021, someone at 10 years old watching you and say these things in such an eloquent and positive way.
Eloquent. Oh my god, I hope 10-year-olds aren't watching me because I'm not eloquent at all.
No, but like, I mean, same with me, like I say fuck every second word, but like it's putting the facts into an easy, digestible way. Do you know what I mean? You're not academic, like you're not saying, oh, I'm back in this and this and this and this, and then I lose count, but it's not. It's a personal story from someone that's going through it, that's put into actual words. Again, I'm not trying to take the piss or anything, but I genuinely think that helps so many kids that you would never understand. And you probably do. You get them all messages all the time, but like I'm so passionate that the stuff that, especially trans people and especially like queer women talking about, is so needed because it's so underrepresented in media and positively represented, not just like a random character that gets killed in a fucking movie. On a nicer note, you went to London College of Fashion, is that right?
Yeah.
I want to know all about this because this is
Oh, it's actually really underwhelming. It's not Emily in Paris at all.
Compared to school coming in, was that like a big like opening for you to be like, oh wow, like this is a wee bit more freer? Like,
oh my god, yeah, totally. Like it literally could not have been. So I actually went to St. Martin's, which is like the sister college of like there's like 5 unis in one uni. St. Martin's is a bit more like arty, crazy, and then fashion. London College of Fashion is more just like fashion, a bit more basic as well, which I'll get to because it wasn't perfect. But so I basically went from like the most like toxic masculinity, all boys, Catholic, tough, rough school where I was so persecuted for my femininity and for being LGBT and queer or whatever, to then go in, so like, literally like I remember like even my like head of year would like always be like, this is a fashion college, Charlie, like all the time. And then when I got into fashion college, I came out, someone's like, by the way, I go to the best fashion college in the country, hun, because I'd always like style my uniform, because I'm like, I'm not gonna wear this ugly uniform, so I'd always like turn up the colors and like put some chain, put a brooch on. I was so calm, like wearing a fucking granny brooch on my fucking school uniform, honestly stan. But so he'd always be like, this is a fashion college. And then I got into fashion college, which in comparison was like the most like LGBT friendly, like feminine environment that was just like celebrated me for being the most feminine person. Like people would like stop me like, oh my god, can I have your picture? Like just for like an outfit picture. I just like, it literally could not have been more different. It blew my mind, and I was just, and actually it did me bad because St. Martin's is actually, no offense to anyone who goes to LCF, it's still really, LCF is really good, but like it's not as good as CSM. So like I actually didn't get into CSM for my degree. I did my foundation year there, but I didn't get it for my degree because I was just always like hanging around with everyone, being everyone's like gay best friend, because it was the first time that people accepted me for being LGBT. So I was like, I'm having the time of my life, like just like having a kiki with everyone. So like I didn't do any work for like the whole year, and then I was like, okay, I guess I'll go to like the less good college. No offense to anyone who goes to LCF, but yeah, LCF was good. Like I said, it was a bit more basic, so it's a bit less free thinking. Like CSM is very like wild and like arty and like crazy. Like you would like see crazy things happening every day, but then LCF is more like that's like couture, and LCF is a bit more like top shop. No offense, I'm gonna get told off by LCF for saying this. They're gonna take me off like their alumni.
It's all personal opinion though, isn't it?
Yeah, you can sue me, but basically, I don't regret going there because I did my degree for my final project. I set up nail transphobia, so I wouldn't even be here now if I didn't go there. So it's all happened for the best, but it was a bit more basic. And I do remember even like there was a little bits of like, it shocked me, but like I remember like some real transphobia in one of my classes once where like someone did like a project about trans people and then they kept like misgendering them while they were presenting, and then someone said just call them it, and the whole class laughed, and I was like, and I wasn't out as trans at this point, so I was like, fucking hell, and I was really pissed off. I think I stormed out the classroom or something, and then everyone realised I was trans, but yeah, I was just like, so it wasn't, I think it's really important, like when I talk about London, like being like kind of like heralded as this like, oh, you can be whoever you want and da-da-da, it's so easy to be LGBT. Same with like fashion school, but also just the arts in general. It gets a bit more praise than sometimes I think it deserves, where it's like, no one cares. And it's like, some people do care. And like, even like when I do talks now and do my nail transphobia pop-ups, I'm usually brought in by like ad agencies and like kind of the arts and stuff. I do a lot of talks for advertising. And I remember one time I came into this place, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a really big, one of the biggest advertising agencies. And when I was doing my talk, someone, and actually, funny enough, it was a straight man, but he was like, oh, you don't have to worry about like transphobia here. We're all really switched on. We're actually really cool. And I said, you know what, you'd be surprised. I said like, and I explained my analogy. And then later on that day when I was doing my nail transphobia, after my talk, I do my little pop-up with my nails, and people come and get their nails done. And I saw guys in the office like standing like at arm's length, and they were like calling me and my workers men. They were like, oh my God, they're men. So I'm like, so it's not, like I was right, like the straight man who said the question, like he was actually really nice, but like, and he was well-meaning, but like, don't give too much praise to anything because nothing is perfect. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, nothing is like, you can't be like, this is like 100% like the trans and LGBT friendly. Like, no, it's not. Like, you have these homophobic straight guys or transphobic in the corner, like calling me and my workers men. So like, it just, you know, I just think it's really important that we don't put anything on a pedestal because nothing's perfect.
So I used to work for a social media company, and every month they get someone in to like do a talk and stuff like that. And it was just after I started working with Student Pride, so I was like, oh, like I'd like to do. I think it was Pride season, so I was like, can I do a talk? And I talked about like the history of it, where it came from, and why it still needed Pride. And the first question I got after talking about like trans rights and the history of trans. Yeah, very first question was bits. What about the bits? And I was like, it doesn't fucking matter. And they were like, oh, no. I was like, no, but it does. Like, I had to sit there and have like, she was one of my colleagues. She's a lovely woman, but like, I got really animated and I really like got a bit upset with her because I was like, why is that the first thing that you've came from this? Like, why is it talking about genitalia is the first thing that you've came out of all this shit that I've just told you? This community's going through, and the first thing you fucking come to me with is, what about this? Like,
and do you want to know the answer to your question? Why? That's the first thing. It's because the media. It's because the Times are writing 324 articles a fucking year about trans people in bad ways. And like, if the public are just like a reflection of them. Like, if I think the reason why whenever even I'm doing nail transphobia pop-ups, and often the first question anyone asks me is like, so have you had the surgery? And I'm like, all right, babe, do you want to ask me how my day's going first? But it's because they've been taught by the media, like by the Jerry Springer shows and by the Times Now or by whatever, they think that's an okay question to ask. And there's so much like talk about our genitalia because that's all the rags talk about and the trash TV shows talk about and what Good Morning Britain talks about on their panels every morning. It's because there's so much, and it's like, how many times have you heard of a trans person in the bathroom doing anything to her? But like, it's out of nowhere.
Yeah,
it's a theoretical like fear, but my life is not theoretical. I'm here. Like, I need to do a wee. So let me fucking do a wee in silence. I'm not interested in you. Like, it's just mad. It's madness. It's absolute madness.
The whole toilet thing is really, really strange, I think. Like, because I looked at it, because I was like, right, before I start kicking off about it, because I think it's stupid, like, let me do my research. Has there been anything? Could not find a single thing. Right, and we're talking maybe like one in Norway, maybe like one in California. Like, we're talking two in the entire world.
Ever, yeah.
And it's like, and then it comes to the obvious thing of like, well, you know, what stops a man just walking in and doing the exact same thing?
Exactly, and I'd feel like so much more threatened. You get it like when you go to a pub or whatever and you get like a man walking into the women's toilets, it's like, okay, fuck leave. Like,
Yeah.
why are you here? But
I think as well, people need to understand, because there's like this fear. The main argument they use is like, oh well, if trans first, okay, let's break it down even further before that. Where do you think trans women have been doing wheeze for the whole of our like century? Like, we have been here forever. We're not a millennial thing. Like,
you've not just appeared out nowhere.
We've been in the toilet next to you, but guess what? When we go into the toilet, we just want to do our wee and get out. We're probably not interested in you. No offense. Like, you're probably not that pretty. Calm down. But like, it's just madness. But then taking that further, like when there's this talk about, well, like trans women shouldn't. And also, funny how it's always about trans women, never about trans men. Like, they never talk about like trans men in bathroom. Right? And also, when you think about like, this is a tangent, but when you think about how they want to put trans women like me in men's bathrooms, and the government are considering that now, that means that like trans men, and I've got most of my trans friends are trans men who are like the most like manly, like hairy, bulky, beefy, manly men, are gonna be in the women's bathroom if they've not had downstairs surgery. Like, you would rather that actual man, who is a very masculine man, be in the bathroom with you than a trans woman like me? No, what? I just don't understand. But anyway, that was a tangent. But what I was going to say is they're always like, well, like, if we let trans women in our bathrooms, then like men might try and come in our bathrooms. Like, yeah, that's a totally separate issue. Men, that's men. I'm a trans woman. You need to understand the difference of like not conflating trans women with men. Because also, guess what? Men are a threat to trans women as well. Like, I am trigger warning, but like, I have been raped more than one time. Like, all my trans friends have pretty much all been raped. We get catcalled in the same way women get catcalled. But guess what? There's also a slap of transphobia after, when they realize you're trans as well. So it's actually even heightened in some ways. But like, we are hurt by the patriarchy in the same way you are. We are hurt by toxic masculinity in the same way you are, because we are not men. So it just is mind-boggling to me that there's like this conflation between like, if we let trans in our bathrooms, then men are going to come in as well. If men want to come in your bathroom, they're like David just said, they're going to come in anyway. Like, if a man's going to go in your bathroom, and they haven't this whole time, but like, if a man's going to want to come in your bathroom, they're going to come in, whether you let trans women in or not, or you want, like, you are literally also sending trans women to like be beaten up in men's bathrooms. Like, you're whining about you women, like you're a certain type of woman being like protected, but then you would rather like literally sacrifice trans women by putting me into a bathroom. Imagine I walk into a men's bathroom, and it's full of like blokey guys. I'm going to be raped. I'm going to be laughed at. I'm going to be beaten up. I might, like, you could even be killed. Like, if you defend yourself back, like, it's like mad that they would rather sacrifice us. That, like, and I'm not even, like, that's all I have to say on that. That is absolutely mind-boggling to me. Mind-boggling. It just reeks of privilege, don't it?
Yeah. And it's, firstly, thanks for saying that. That's like, I know that's no.
Sorry, that was just like a fucking Friday morning, and I'm like,
no,
murder, rape, blah blah blah.
It's all things that need to be said.
Yeah, I'm always of the opinion of like, you have to say these things, and there's if someone like you saying them, then there's 1,000 other people that's been through the same shit.
Yeah.
And it's. Yeah, and it's I even from a pure empathy point of view, it doesn't matter if for trans people helping gay people, or like, just from a sheer empathy point of view, surely we look after the people that are hurting the most and getting the most abuse, rather than focusing on something that doesn't really exist. But it's the right wing media, and it's straight out of the playbook. Find something that doesn't really exist and make it a fear.
And also make it a fear to distract from the real issues in society, like the failings of the Tory government even before Corona. Like, because it's funny how like this toilet thing's coming up now. We're all in our houses. Like, no one's even using public toilets, and they've just launched an investigation, which is getting a lot of press. Why do you care? Why do you care? We're not even using toilets. Like, it's just mad. And also the funny thing is I didn't even use public toilets. I've never used public toilets, and it kind of stems back to being LGBT. Like, because in school, I never once, I can promise you now, on my best friend's life, who's passed away, I never once in my 7 years at school used a toilet. And there was one day, like in particular, I remember I was like, I needed a toilet from before school even started, and I held it the whole day. And I lived an hour from school as well, so factor in getting home for an hour. I don't know how I didn't get a bladder infection, but honestly, like, it's because I was like too nervous to use a boy's toilet, because I just didn't feel like a boy. But the point is, I don't know if I even told that story, that adds nothing, but what I was going to say is most trans people I know don't even use public toilets because we don't feel safe in them. So it's funny how like the people who are probably the most, you are more of a threat to us. Like it's more scary for a trans woman walking into a bathroom knowing that there might be like women in there who are going to shout at her and threaten her and film her and like harass her. We're not doing anything. There's no examples ever of, at least in this country, but even in other countries, there's like 1 or 2 examples, but like of trans women being a threat to you in your bathroom. So why are we being made out to be like the bullies or like to be the perpetrators when we are if you look at us in society, we're like we're the lowest of the low. Like trans women are like, and then going further than that, black trans women, we are literally like the scum of, we are like the fucking lowest in the food chain. We are like the people who are being laughed at in the streets, people who are being harassed. Like we are, why do you think we, like, it just makes no sense to me. Like I just don't understand that lack of, like you said, empathy, the lack of compassion for like people who are having a hard time in their life. Like it's really hard, and like to then like make our lives even harder when we, and
especially at the moment as well, when everybody is so isolated and so down at the same time, to bring this up at this very moment.
And I think as well, it's actually because it gets painted in our head like it's a really big thing, and it's like what most women think. And I would say it's in the minority. Like most women don't think like this. Like I personally don't know any women in my life, and even in like my extended circles of like family, friends, and like people who I'm not even close to, and people on my estate where I live, like I don't know anyone like women who think. It's actually a very small minority of like really like of turfy women who just like are so like consumed in this kind of like, it's almost like what's that word, like, it's like where they're like kind of made to think this is like such a big thing, like, and they're kind of like fed like that, like it's like a
propaganda.
Yeah, it's like, it's very that. It's like, oh my God, like this is your, like it becomes their whole life. And then because they're so loud in the media, it makes it feel like it's like a 50-50, like trans people versus women. And it's like, no, I'd say it's like most women are actually decent people who know that, who actually got their heads switched on as well and know that we're not a threat. Like we're not men, like men are the threat. Like, I don't know, but yeah, madness.
I guess a wee bit more positive. So I'm just bringing you down all day, Charlie.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Have a horrible weekend now.
Yeah. What was it like when you had a shitty experience in school? Like, what was it like when you kind of like found your tribe? Do you know what I mean? You tell like the people that are kind of getting you through a lot of the stuff that happened. But like, what was that like? You started to get a bit more of a kind of attention for some of the good stuff you're doing, and then, you know, finding your little kind of pocket and your little kind of family. Like, how was that after all the shit at school?
I'm the most bluntly honest person, and I could lie to you, but I'm not even gonna lie to you. I don't feel like I have found my tribe in real life, if I'm honest. I'm actually I'd rather talk about it because I think it's really important to talk about the damages of like bullying of LGBT people in schools. I have always struggled with friendships because I've just never, because I was so isolated in school. I had not a single friend. Towards the end, I would have to like stay there. They would always make the kids go out the classrooms, even basically and the teachers knew I was so badly bullied that they wouldn't even make me leave. They were like, you can just stay in the art room, Charlie, like don't have to go out. So I literally couldn't even eat in the canteen or whatever. So like I never had any friends. So like being ostracized, because it really was ostracization, like for 7 years, fucks with your head. And if we, I think it's really important that we don't gloss over the effects of something as serious as that, or something as serious of physical abuse for 7 years, or for emotional abuse, or verbal abuse. It really does take a toll. And so I haven't even found my tribe yet. I really do struggle with loneliness ever since school. But I feel very lucky in that I have social media. It's down people might think it sounds a bit stupid, but for me, I do feel like I found my tribe online at least, which is really nice. It might make me sound like a loser, but I really couldn't care less.
I don't think that makes you a loser at all. I don't think the internet's got anything to do with it, because I mean, I've got a lot of friends online that I've mainly...
You're a loser. Oh my God, what a loser.
Yeah.
You're really sweet, babe. Thank you for that.
No, because, I mean, especially with... I mean, I do cosplay, all that sort of thing, so we normally have conventions at least twice a year, but a lot of my friends are all at least scattered over the world. So I only know them as online, or I've only met them once or twice in person. So... Yeah. I have my very small, my 2 or 3 best friends that I know in real life, but everybody else is online.
Yeah. I think it's really important to say that for anyone who is in the kind of school age who might be listening to this, who is struggling with finding their tribe in real life as well, find them online. Like if you can't, maybe you might be lucky to find them in real life one day, hopefully, but like in the meantime, like social media and places like that are like can be your haven, and they've definitely really been a good place for me, like even just with my mental health and stuff, to just find people like who just kind of find my tribe online, I guess.
See, I've sort of had the opposite. I think I find...
Must be nice, David. Must be nice.
It's all right for some, love.
I was actually going to mean the opposite with social media.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Like I find it as a gay man, when you go into like gay Twitter, it's fucking awful. Like, and it always kind of feels like you're sort of like excluded from something that's quite very samey. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's all pictures of people with six packs. It's all like very like image focused led, and I'm a bit like, well, I have, you know, like you say, I have issues with my own self that I don't even want to address when I'm looking at social media, and it's constantly there having to be. So one of the reasons why lockdown's been so hard for me is I recharge by talking to people, and I recharge by being around my friends, and I've not got that, and I'm in the same four walls, and it's like, ugh. And like my two closest friends are back home in Glasgow, and I've seen them like twice in the last 12 months. And it's like, that's a hard thing as well. Because it's like, when I kind of go back there, it's like, we call each other family, like we're all sad bastards. But like, they're my family, because I hope my mum never hears this book, but she's mental. And so is my aunt. Like, my whole family is just a bit fucking scatty. And, and they're lovely. Like, I love them a lot, but like, when actually, but they're very stressful. Do you know what I mean? Whereas when I'm with my friends, I like, oh, okay, I can chill and be myself. But yeah, I found social media. I've tried to get into social. It's my fucking job, you know. So I have to be on it every day. But I just never feel like I'm there yet with it. Like, I always feel a bit kind of excluded by it, which is why.
Feeling actually, I like. Pre-transition, I remember the feeling of like, because I thought I was gay, and just feeling so different. Like when I would like go like see like all the like, again, like you're saying, all the six packs, and like so sexual, and like just like feeling like such a loser compared to these people. It made me feel really small, and I didn't feel accepted. So I know that feeling. Maybe you need to like hang around with the trans girls, mate, even though you're not a trans girl, but like we'll take you in. I'll look after you. I'll bring you into my circle.
Social media is just toxic in general. I don't think I've ever had like a healthy relationship with, especially Instagram. Instagram is the worst one, I think, for me. I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter, so I don't really know. But but Instagram to me is just, you're constantly comparing, and you're constantly if you don't compare, other people will compare for you and put you up against other people. And the people who dominate the platform all look and act and are the same person.
Yeah.
So
I saw something that said like, don't follow. I didn't unfollow them, but I muted so many people because it's like friends who, and I love that they're not friends, but they're like online friends. But like they make me feel bad. Like a lot of trans girls who are so pretty, and I'm like, I can't fucking deal with looking at you because you're so gorgeous, and it's a compliment, and I love you, but it's fucking out of my head. Like, babe, I feel like a pig next to you. So like, I muted a load of people, and I feel so much better. And now I only follow like and see the posts of like people who like I don't follow. Like, no offense, like because I kind of am one, but I'm more of like a social cause one. But like, you know, like influencers. Like I don't follow pretty people. Like, or like I follow funny people. I follow meme pages. I follow dog pages. I follow like activists like me, like who are doing important things that I can get a part with and feel good about myself. I only follow, and then my friends in real life, and that's all I follow. I refuse to follow like people who are gonna, even if they're not doing it in a mean way, but I don't want to feel bad about myself. So I just would encourage anyone listening as well to just like, don't feel bad. Like, press that mute button, babes. Like, they don't even know. Like, they're gonna know now because they've heard me say this on here. But
like, Charlie's not liked any of my stuff in a very long time.
She not watched my story in like 3 years. But yeah, like you gotta do what you gotta do for your mental health, and if it makes you feel bad seeing like someone who's like 10 times prettier than you, then just don't see them, and then you're gonna think you're 10 times prettier. It's a science, babe.
Yeah.
Cool. So the last question we always ask, Charlie, very RuPaul, like, if there's any time that you could go back to 16-year-old Charlie, is there anything you would do differently, or any advice that you would give to yourself back then?
I wish I could go back and just like tell myself to not be a victim anymore, because you can't choose what people do to you, but you can choose how you respond, and you can choose whether you are like victimized because of it, and like whether you take on that kind of title and feeling. And I was like, no, like now I'm like, I can be victimized, but I'll never be a victim. Like I can have people still constantly, almost every day, I mean, in the media, obviously with trans stuff, but also just in the street, in my everyday life, people doing me dirty, saying things rude, calling me things behind, whispering or laughing or taking photos. I will never, ever, ever let it slide ever again. I mean, you do have to pick and choose your battles sometimes, but like, and I wish I could go back and just be like, just stop being, you need to stand up for yourself, because no one else is going to stand up for you. You need to be your own hero, sort of thing. So I wish I could just go back and tell myself that.
That's amazing. I like that. That's a perfect way to end that. Before to stop, is there anything you want to plug? Anything you want to mention just before we stop?
I guess just the main thing is just I would love to, if everyone could give my documentary a watch. I just really want the public to know the truth and to understand things and just to get involved in this thing. Because like I said to you earlier, David, how much I appreciate, and the same with you, Morgan, like allies getting involved. Like we need you on our side, because like I said, we are 1% of the population. We are not going to win this fight alone. Like we are such a small minority. We need some of you on our side to be able to fight back and to counterbalance this insane amount of hate that's being thrown upon our 1% population. You know, it's like we need you on our side. So I guess that's all I want to plug, is just please get involved in some way to just like stand up for your trans brothers and sisters. Yeah. And then I guess I might as well plug my Instagram while I'm plugging. I've got my Instagram, Charlie_Craggs, and Twitter as well. Got a book called To My Trans Sisters. I think that's everything. I'm on Bumble, Tinder, sometimes on Grindr if I'm in a bad place. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Perfect. Thanks so much, Charlie. And
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
So much. Bye.
I feel like Charlie is that one mate you'd sit in a pub and chat with for hours. When COVID isn't a thing, obviously. We love you, Charlie. Next week, we've got podcast Nothing Short of Iconic with UK Drag Race star Cheryl Hole and internet sensation Max Belliette. They discuss successes from Drag Race and TikTok, their coming out stories, and the troubles they faced in the limelight. As a trigger warning for next week's episode, we do feature meaningful discussions surrounding the Ariana concert bombings. If you'd like to hear more from us, don't forget to grab your tickets for a week-long event starting April 19th, 2021, where you'll get to hear and see even more of our madness. Join me next week for more queer discussions and straight facts. Bye!